Giannis blocks Katie's jumper. The ball falls into Kyrie's hands. Kyrie buries the three. But, Perk, is Giannis the only player on the planet who can actually block this? I mean, there's not that many.
It's not that many. I saw Jaylen Brown do it like 2 years ago, and I think Ben Simmons. There's only 3 of them. It's only a handful, Rachel, but that's once every 100 games.
Yeah. But you know what, Perk? If we went to the Wayback Machine, I bet Hakeem could do it too. That's my guess.
But would Hakeem have been out on the perimeter to do it? There you go. Welcome to
today's NBA, he would, right?
Probably. Welcome to The Jump. I'm Rachel Nichols alongside NBA champ Kendrick Perkins, Hall of Famer Jackie McMullen. We have such a big show planned, guys. NBA Twitter legend Jason Concepcion dropping by to preview tonight's first ever Marvel-themed NBA broadcast. A heroic matchup between the Warriors and the Pelicans. It's going to air on ESPN2. Jeff Green from the Brooklyn Nets, he's also going to stop by talking about his love for Marvel. Also, what's going on with Brooklyn, finding chemistry with his superstar teammates. First, though, the Lakers dropping their third straight game last night. Now Woj and Dave McMenamin reporting the Lakers will be without starting point guard Dennis Schroeder for 10 to 14 days due to COVID health and safety protocols. Schroeder sat out last night's loss to the Raptors because of the protocols. This is the second COVID-related absence for Schroeder. There's never a good time to lose a starter, but this is a heavy blow to the Lakers as they try to reintegrate LeBron and AD back into the lineup. LeBron isn't even still playing consistently. We'll have more on that in a minute, but back to Schroeder, who is averaging 15.5 points and 5.8 assists this season, was one of the key players who kept the Lakers afloat without LeBron and AD. Perk, what do you think the loss of Schroeder means for the Lakers right now?
Well, Rachel, it means everything. And it's horrible and it's a disaster when you look at it. When you look at the structure of the Los Angeles Lakers, it's only 2 playmakers at the guard position and at their wing position, LeBron James and Dennis Schroeder. You take Dennis Schroeder away, who do you have left? A hobbling LeBron James is not good for the Lakers right now. LeBron James is not healthy, as we can see. I don't even think he's 60%. So, and it just goes to show you, though, I want to give a lot of credit to the players around the whole entire NBA of what they've been dealing with throughout the NBA season, dealing with certain situations as far as testing on the regular, as far as with COVID and the whole COVID protocol situation.
I couldn't agree more, Perk. This is a really tough blow for the Lakers for the exact point you mentioned. Who's going to facilitate now? You don't want to put more on LeBron James's plate. And the other thing about Schroeder, I thought it was really important for him to be around because, as we know, Anthony Davis has been struggling a bit as he reintegrates back into this team. He's only shooting 39% from the floor. The Lakers have actually been outscored by 56 points during the time that he's been back. Now, we know he's a great player, but who better than your point guard, who has been a really big leader, and you could argue one of the most important players on that team, to get you back into the swing of it? Now you're not going to have him.
Jackie, do you think that seeing this will impact any of the Lakers and other teammates or maybe other teams around the league? The league has been pretty clear. If you are vaccinated, the protocols will be different for you. Schroeder missed time earlier this season for contact tracing. The league has already come out and said that's not going to be the case for vaccinated players, taking guidance from the CDC. Right now, he's missing 10 to 14 days, which is usually an indicator that the player is dealing with coronavirus. That is going to be kept private, but we can sort of read the tea leaves of the schedule. And again, look, we have this information from our nation's leading doctors that it is very, 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 very hard to come up with a positive coronavirus test if you are fully vaccinated. Do you think that this is now impacting players and teams on the court and, in fact, could really put a dent in the Lakers' playoff hopes, might affect some of the thinking of players who maybe are okay getting vaccinated, just haven't gotten around to it or have sort of on the fence, Jackie?
Well, if they haven't got vaccinated yet, I would be guessing that their teams are going to ask them to do it in a big hurry and probably recommend the one-shot vaccination. Because as you know, you get vaccinated, you have to wait 2 to 3 weeks to get the second vaccination, and then you're not officially cleared according to the CDC guidelines for another 2 weeks. You're talking 5 or 6 weeks out. I do think this, COVID has just cast a pall over this entire season. I think that's pretty obvious to everybody. And when these things happen, it's just so frustrating, not just to the player involved, but everybody on his team, because now they all have to be tested again. This is just, This nightmare can't be over soon enough for a lot of NBA players, that's for sure.
And look, the NBA has made it clear to the Players Association, to individual players, it is up to the person himself whether he wants to get vaccinated. Right. But they've also made it clear that the rules are going to be different for people who are and aren't, just like the rules in society are going to be different. The CDC has already come out and said this. So you're just going to have to decide. There's all kinds of factors when you decide as a player, am I going to take this painkiller or not? What will it do to my body long term? What will it do if I play on this ankle that I probably shouldn't play in, but it's the playoffs and I really want to be there for my team? Those kinds of questions we're used to players grappling with injury, that they are now going to grapple with vaccination questions that really are a lot of the same sort of pros and cons and equation, I think is going to be very interesting. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the Lakers game last night. Pascal Siakam, Kyle Lowry, two-man wrecking crew out there, just torching the Lakers for a combined 76 points. The Lakers' losses continue to mount. They've now lost 6 of their last 7, currently in 6th place in the West. They have the same record as the 7-seeded Trailblazers, though, so there is a real chance the defending champs will drop into that play-in tournament, something that just seemed inconceivable. It was only 2 months ago they were in 2nd place in the West. LeBron shared his thoughts about the play-in tournament, and they're not positive. Take a listen.
It doesn't matter at the end of the day if I'm not, 100% close to 100%. It don't matter, where we land, So, that's my mindset. And, if this happens to, we end up at 6th or 5th or whatever the case may be, or if we end up in the playoff, whatever that thing is, whoever came up with that need to be fired. But whatever.
All right, so a little breaking news from WOJ and Ramona Shelburne. The Lakers' LeBron is out tonight against the Nuggets. He re-aggravated his ankle in the 4th quarter of last night's loss. Jackie, calling for someone to be fired is strong. I can hear you laughing there. What is your opinion of LeBron's comments?
I can understand his frustration, Rachel. I really can. And you are correct in that it was inconceivable for anyone on the Lakers to even think about the play-in game. I'm sure they never even gave it a thought, never paid attention to how it worked, because it was never going to be part of their equation. It was never going to be anything that affected them. I'm sure Mark Cuban felt the same way about his Dallas Mavericks. I don't blame people for changing their minds. People are pulling out an old quote from LeBron saying he thinks it's a great idea, and it was from March 2018 or March 2020 or whatever it was. But I think all of these guys have the right to change their mind, because no one knew what toll this year. This has been like the baton death march this NBA season, honestly, for every team, coaches, players, GMs, everyone. So I don't blame people for changing their mind and saying, man, the last thing we need are more games with less time in between them.
Yeah, look, Jackie, I agree with your point, but I disagree with LeBron as far as the play-in, because I actually love the play-in tournament, okay? I think it holds teams and organizations accountable throughout the regular season, not to take the regular season for granted. And during this time when it's getting towards the end of the regular season, going into the playoffs, sometimes teams relax. You have guys load managing, guys sitting out games, guys tanking, things to that nature. Well, this here nips everything in the bud. And I think, when you think about load management part of it, where hardworking people are taking their kids to games or their friends to games, and superstars are now playing. Now you have to play, because every game means something. So I actually love the play-in tournament. And I think a guy that was a great example who took full advantage of the play-in tournament was Damian Lillard last year in the bubble. He said, I'm not going down to the bubble just to play. I need to have a reason to play, and I want an opportunity to go in and play to get in the playoffs. And he shined like new money. So I get LeBron frustration because his ankle injury, his team, and where they are. But the play-in tournament has been a great thing that the NBA has added to the schedule and to the NBA period.
Look, I'm all for the play. Go ahead, Jackie.
Saying, Perk. Oh, no, I was going to say, I get what you're saying, Perk, but I just think you have to look at this year through a different lens. And now what's happening, because of the play-in and people and teams wanting to avoid the play-in, players who are injured are coming back sooner than they should. I would present LeBron James as a potential example. And so is that good for the league, for players to come back before they're healthy because they want to avoid that seventh spot at all spots? I'm not so sure.
I'm not
that's
sure
so
that's
good.
why LeBron's coming back now,
Yeah.
though. There's only such a handful of games before the playoffs. You know that either way, he would want to be
Right.
getting himself
Right.
back into shape, getting his rhythm with
Right.
Anthony Davis. And I will say this for the Lakers, whether they end up in 7th in the playoff spot, play-in spot, or 6th, they may want to end up in 7th looking at the bracket, right? Because if they end up in 6th, guess who they would play in the first round if the season ended today? The Clippers in the first round. Meanwhile, if they end up in 7th, they play either Phoenix or Utah. And I am not making a statement of, oh, gee, those are easier than the Clippers. But I know that there's been talk amongst the Lakers that perhaps you would want one of those earlier matchups. So I think that it is a little bit of a gamble to try to pick your opponent. Having to play the extra game of having to play the playing game might be something that the Lakers, who are banged up, are not looking forward to. But overall, their big problem is LeBron is still hurting, Anthony Davis is still finding his legs, and now Dennis Schroeder is out for 10 to 14 days. All right, friends, I need to show you something.
Uh-oh.
This is